All right, so is Dale Bellido and Scully here back for the Road to the World Championships 2020, and today we're gonna look at the Chaos Turbo deck, and we're gonna start off by looking at something that surprised me that Dale just brought to my attention is on formatlibrary.com looking at the Chaos Flip deck from Chaos Flip Turbo deck from 2016 that Jazz posted here.
Yeah, it seems like this deck has been around a lot longer than people have known. Like it was this I didn't even find this. This was brought to my attention by one of the guys that are actually we're going to be looking at. I am Maze One. He's the one that told me that this deck was around since 2016. So
I did not realize this was a 4 year old deck at all. Like, I especially didn't think the Cyberjar was in it, the tomato engine. I'm actually pretty surprised to look at this.
yeah, yeah, and it's very similar to I guess we could jump quickly ahead to what Swisky brought back in 2019 or 2020. Sorry, this year.
Yeah, so the upstarts were still in his build that he got second place in. The monster lineup, what is here? 22, and this one's playing 21. Um, what is even the
I think he put
difference? So here's
yeah.
the big difference: is the Gravekeeper Spy.
Yeah,
It's
the
probably
spies, because at the time, I guess aggro was winning a lot.
right. This was coming
Guys,
off the heels of Geist back-to-back wins with a Chaos Warrior.
yeah. So,
Um,
is there a side deck for the first one?
there is. I don't know how much I would put into this side deck.
Yeah,
It looks kind of just like cards to maybe try. The Mind Control definitely probably ahead of its time for 2016. Um, Before we go too far there, what do you think of this deck overall in itself? Um,
I think for the longest time, it felt like Go format might have been solved with this deck.
that this was just
Like
the
it,
tier zero deck.
yeah, it felt tier zero. It felt like it didn't matter. Like the hands were consistently really, really good. You could play out of a lot of positions. Um, Chaos Monster Book of Moon is one of the best locks, not even locks, like setups that you could have. It's so hard to deal with. Um, but yeah, over time, like we're seeing the chinks in the armor, and it's why we're looking at it second, and I think it's the second best deck of the format now.
So some stuff from these early builds that I think you're seeing cut more is the Upstart Goblins. I
Yep.
think life points matter a little too much in GOAT format, and Upstart Goblin, even in a deck like this where you kind of want them to really combo your like card destruction, graceful charity, discard traps with your with your Thunder Dragons and Night Assailants. I think even at this point, the 1,000 life points still matters too much because we see with these
Yeah,
decks too, they go through all of their cards, and you're like, wow, what do I have left on my deck? One Chaos Sorcerer to end this game with, and two
e-
thousand life points could be a lot.
exactly. Yeah, the biggest knock on the deck when playing it, if you're coming from any of the other two standard decks, is it's very difficult to OTK, right? And this deck kind of builds up resources, and the way you play it is you grind them down, you make them play their cards to answer yours, and you're consistently baiting with this deck, and it doesn't look like it baits that well, but it's surprising how strong this deck is.
Yeah, I mean it's able to bait with stuff like the Gravekeeper Spy and the Mystic Tomato, where your opponent has to use real cards to get those off the board, and then you're
Yeah,
playing the maximum copies of Chaos Sorcerer. So if you get your opponent to play their Chaos Monster first, or use up a hopefully if they're going for Thousand Eyes, you're going to counter it with either the Regeki Breaks or the Book of Moon or the Wing Blast, the Ring of Destruction. So then you're able
yeah,
to use your cast monsters just purely to remove theirs.
yeah, exactly. Like I guess the reason upstarts were also there in the beginning is to make turn one Faith a decent, like another card to get back to.
Yeah, that was what Swisky said of why he was like, you're playing
Yeah,
three Magician of Faith, so you can go the turn one upstart for and then your Magician's Live. Um, as I guess that's a fact, but if you're doing that, you're probably already in a bad spot anyway.
yeah, of course.
Like you don't want to be.
Um,
It's not a play you want to do.
and like one of the big things with this deck is think about the mirror match, and you drop a sorcerer to answer something, and you're backing it with the Book of Moon. What outside of BLS could they possibly answer that with the first on that turn?
Close to
Like
nothing.
an like another Chaos Sorcerer, if you prio banish, you're just gonna book. If they try to attack, you book theirs. Like it's so strong. People don't notice. I'm sure people notice now how strong it is, but it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, for the mirror match, just looking at the only answer really is like a set Night Assailant or a set Cyberjar
Yeah,
for a one card answer. Or Regeki Break's a great answer too, but depending on your
we
discard options.
uh to stay on Swisky's deck. The reason why it was so good is primarily the side deck. The side deck was able to stop all the aggro decks with Messenger Peace and Royal Decree.
Mm-hmm.
That the side deck alone simply like fully phased out the Chaos Warrior decks, all
And
the aggro decks, because they couldn't do anything.
and we these are cards we did not see too much of in people's sideboards the last GFC, and Chaos
Yeah,
Warrior was able to take the win.
yeah, and you're starting. Yeah, you're seeing that because people are adapting to make. They feel like they're expendable cards in the side deck, and they want to gear more for the mirror match or for the other big decks, right?
Right, like Swiski did have a great sideboard here. The Trap Dust Shoots for the mirror match. The Nidorias, maybe you could explain a little more of how those are good. I think you have previously to me, but remind me of why you want
Yeah.
Nidorias.
Nidoria is strong in the aggro mashup as well too. It just gives you more sets. And it can attack under messenger.
Mm-hmm. Great card if your opponent for in the mirror if you're afraid of your opponent bringing in mind controls.
Yeah, for sure. It's also very good against Azura Priest. It again, I know this deck outside of Gravekeeper Spy is weak to Azura Priest, and a lot of people don't notice how oppressive it is.
So some stuff for this deck, what it's kind of known for is like cutting a lot of staples. So you'll see like even in this 2016 version, no Call the Haunted, no Premature Burial, no Snatch Steal. Um, this deck kind of thrives on not on having cards that are good in your opening hand no matter what.
Yeah,
And
and it's so shocking. Like Swisky when he jumps to his, he cut MST and Snatch, and obviously the two revival cards.
Torrential Tribute. So this version here, no Mirror Force, and then 4 years later, Switzky's running the Mirror Force, but no Torrential. Um,
Yeah,
I believe I don't know if we pulled up the list here. Okay, yeah, so here's IMZ1's one, which took it
mm,
even to the farther extreme of no Call the Haunted, no Premature Burial, no Snatch Steal, no Ring of Destruction, no Mirror Force, no Torrential Tribute, and the cards aren't even in the side deck.
yeah. He was just this person just set set as many cards as you want. Solemn is actually super strong,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a card that I love being included in this deck now. Um,
Yeah, the
but yeah,
ability to say no to anything with Solemn can, like you said, of a Chaos Sorcerer with a Book of Moon, it kind of doubles in of Chaos Sorcerer with a Book of Moon or Chaos Sorcerer with a Solemn Judgment could be just as strong.
yeah, it just makes your BLS even like an early BLS now can is like make sense when you have this much defense. Like book BLS knock, I mean book BLS Solemn Judgment. You're gonna win that game shortly.
You see, the Upstart Goblins were cut after the Swisky version for IMZ1 here, went with Jar
Yeah.
Greeds to not give his opponent the life points. Um, Plenty of cards to set for the back row, just 9, 12, including the Book of Moons, of just all chainable cards.
Yeah,
Um,
and it just shows that you don't need that much. Like Book of Moon Chaos Sorcerer is kind of defense in itself, and just with three defensive traps in well, I guess you can count Solemn as it, but the three cutting out the Mirror Force, the Torrential, and the Ring. This is when I was talking about King Dragoon being really strong.
oh yeah, against this particular build, there's
Yeah,
one out in the whole deck.
Yeah, that and BLS, I guess, are the two outs to King
Sure,
Dragoon,
I guess
right?
you could attack over it, or
Yeah.
I guess you could solemn the Cyberstein.
Yeah, or Solemn the meta if they're playing the
Fusler,
Fusler way.
yeah. Pretty similar sideboard here. The thing to note though, like I would not recommend to not even side deck the Mirror Force or Torrential Tribute. What happened to IMZ1 here was his opponent figured out by by finals that he wasn't playing Torrential Tribute or Mirror Force and was able to just throw monsters on the board and keep attacking because he knew they weren't in the main or the side deck.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that he lost. I didn't watch the game, but his side looks like it counters what the Mensch would bring in. So this is when he played the Mensch.
Yeah, he
And
lost.
if he brought in Necro Gravekeepers, Decree Messenger shuts down Gravekeepers too.
Yeah, and he had the Swarm of Locusts to protect it to try to pop it with too, but
Yeah, like all you just wait for Heavy Storm game, right? They literally have no disruption if you can get that lockup.
so from there we saw Petranx, who took second place because he didn't show up against IMZ1 in the previous, or he got third because he didn't show up against
Yeah,
IMZ1
he didn't show
and
up in the
GFC
morning.
8, and then for GFC Euros he did win first place and see kind of the evolution of the deck here as the he kind of just played whatever he wanted for the trap cards.
Yeah, he was saying that he just wants as many chainables. When I was speaking to him, as many chainables in his back row. Obviously, that's why he cut down to one solemn.
Mm-hmm.
And the discard traps just seem so strong, right?
So yeah, he went to the fourth by adding in the Wing Blast, and then cut a Jar Greed for a Dust Shoot and a Solemn for a Dust Shoot.
Yeah.
And then
And I
again,
think this is when he was just testing his side deck for the mirror match. That's not something that I know he's still on.
mm-hmm, which is still solid, like Necro Valley, and you have Solemns with it, and
Yeah,
I,
he sides into the a little bit closer to IMZ1's deck.
yeah, I don't think he actually used this side deck all that much in the tournament.
So he told me he used it twice, and he used it against Geist, and he ended up beating Geist, and he used it against La Bounty too.
No, that's two strong wins.
So yeah, like, and I think something we were talking about last week is the inclusion of Sangan, like how needed is Sangan and Sinister, right?
Yeah, that's
And we
something I
said
wanted to ask again. Of like, does this deck really need Sinister Serpent?
so with playing this deck, a lot of the times, like the two Thunder Dragons are in my hand, and they're almost never pitched to the Regeki Break to the Wing Blast because I'm turboing out into the Sinister.
Mm-hmm. Which could that be
And
turboing into even just the Sangan just to grab a Night Assailant could potentially
yeah,
be
like
the
the like
go-to move instead. The thing I've seen with Sinister happen a lot too is it makes Trap Dust Shoot a lot more live, whereas people end up just leaving Sinister in the graveyard just to play around Trap Dust Shoot anyway.
yeah.
Like
But
once,
this deck, like, there's no way to play around Dust Shoot. You're gonna get
right?
Dust Shoot
That's
when you're
true
playing this
too.
deck.
Yeah. And then from
And obviously, yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Okay, so
You you can you can make the next.
take a look at Carl's deck here, which his is almost getting towards control level. I guess not too much. So
Yeah,
we're seeing the Kaikus in here replacing, not maxing out on Spy, not maxing out on Dekochi, kind of just going for the medical with the Sewer Priest and the Kaikus.
yeah. He cut the tomatoes, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the only problem with that is now the knocks are almost guaranteed to hit a flip.
That's true. What else are you even setting?
Yeah, like
Sagan
you
and
can't
Sinister.
you don't mask it behind anything, right? You
Although at the same time, as this deck was getting more popular, Chaos Warrior was getting less popular. So having the tomatoes to be the monster to be attacked over by Blade Knight wasn't as important as much as
yeah
it
yeah.
was throwing a Kaiku on the board to not let your opponent summon Chaos Sorcerers.
Yeah, like Kaiku is crazy in this mirror match, and to start it, like there's two cards that are that shift momentum so much, and Kaiku and Mind Control that were originally side deck cards.
Mm-hmm.
And to play one of the two in main deck, I guess the safer choice would be Kaiku.
Right, you never know
C-
what
c-
mind control is going to be when you play it, or if it's even going to be useful game one. Whereas Kaiku's at
yeah,
least a solid body no matter what.
yeah. With like, imagine having in the mirror match, right? If we have Kaiku on board, like, what is the answer to it, right? You got to go book and attack over, or book summon Chaos Monster, one of the discard traps. That's
That's it.
6 cards,
Yeah.
and then Snatch. Snatch is something that slowly started coming back in, like around this time, even before, in between P-Tran, like in the competitive play, in between P-Tran's win and Carl's win, you were starting to see Snatch slowly getting included back into it.
Yeah, so like here we see on the 2016 list, no Snatch Steal. Swisky did play the copy of it, and then from there, IMZ1 had cut it, P-Tranks had cut it, and then we see it back here in Carl's deck.
Yeah, Carl brought it back in.
Alright, so then this deck I think is interesting in that this is the one that Yada Yada and Rick Killer both have got second place in FLC 13 and 15 with. And this version here does not run Cyberjar, which I don't think we saw any of in FLC 15.
Yeah, so it's a card that's just so, like, you never play it when you're ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it backfire so many times.
Which is kind of how I felt about card destruction, that can make
Yeah,
it backfire as well. Um, I thought we did see P-Tranks cut card destruction for his first place win. I think if the tournament got third place, he cut it as well.
I
But
think he came first, and he came first back to back, right? There was an FLC and a GFC.
oh yeah, you're right. And he did not use card destruction in either of those builds.
Yeah,
So card destruction's still in here. We see one Kaiku making its way into the main, one Snatch Steal. Well, obviously it's limited to one, but still the copy of Snatch Steal is there. And yeah, so no Cyberjar in this build.
and I'm okay with that. I actually think and well, the one thing I'm not okay with is the cut down on the sorcerer.
Yeah, I guess that can kind of be in junction with the Cyberjar that you're. But I think you need the three sorcerers as well. I think I'd play the third
Like,
sorcerer before the third spy. This version
yeah,
also going down to two Magician of Faith. So this one kind of, I said Carl's version kind of felt like it was going a little more towards control, which I guess is you see the Magician of Faith being cut and some more like monsters that you would normal summon rather than set like with Sewer Priest and Kaiku. And here you're seeing down to two Magician of Faith, no Cyberjar, but the three Dekochi's still here.
yeah, like I like Carl's version a little bit more, only because it plays the level, like, in my opinion, the level 4 normal summon monsters that are strongest against this matchup and against um, Chaos Control in Azure Priest and Kaiku's.
So Carl's version here too, no Mirror Force or Torrential on the Manor side, so I guess his opponents did not figure that out in GFC 9. Or if they did, they couldn't
Yeah,
take advantage of it. I like the mind controls on the side. I like the tribe infecting virus. I like the magic jammer. I like the kinetic soldiers. I think it's a pretty strong build overall. Other than
yeah,
like you said, I think I'd find a way to fit that third cast sorcerer.
yeah. Like I feel like you need the third Chaos Sorcerer in. I know a lot of people that I speak to say they even side out the third Sorcerer a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's needed.
I guess going second, I can see not well. I can see the argument for two sorcerers of you don't want to open two or open sorcerer BLS and have to dump those cards just to be able to make your other cards live.
Yeah.
Um, but if
The
you're
the
getting to the
biggest
late game, having more sorcerers is a really big deal.
Exactly, and that's, I think, a small issue with this deck is its late game is not as strong as, let's say, Chaos. That's why I like Chaos Control better, because it has a stronger late game. But the early game in this deck is phenomenal. That's why I felt like it was tier zero for quite some time, because every opening hand I looked at was playable.
Right, like
Was like I'm like,
this deck made sacrifices in order to make its opening hands better.
yeah. And I think you don't need to do that because the deck opens really well, but when you're playing cards like Breaker and Kaiku, you could see the inconsistencies there.
Hmm. I think, yeah. So going back to these first builds, even no breaker as well. There's pretty much no normal summons for unless you're normal summon a tomato for any of these decks up until
Carl,
yeah up until Carl.
Rob Breaker.
Breaker, Sewer Priest, Kaiku. So that's like at that point, I think you're better off like I don't know. Do you think the deck keeps evolving that way? The more you go this direction, I feel like the more you're getting closer to chaos control.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that was the shift, right? Like even though Chaos Control won before this,
Mm-hmm.
what won this tournament that came? One was Chaos Warrior,
Chaos Control 1, FLC 15, and Chaos
uh,
Warrior 1, GFC 10.
won the other one. Yeah. This version lost to Chaos Warrior, right? Oh yeah, they both did, right? So they
Um,
sided out
yeah,
the
they
they
both
sided
lost
out the
to Chaos Warrior.
to
Or to
yeah,
Chaos. No, they both lost to
Control and Warrior, right?
Yeah, both one of each, sorry. This weekend, or last weekend, FLC 15, it lost to Chaos Control.
And part of it is like the side deck looks like it has enough to answer aggro, but Dust Tornadoes and like the Kinetic Soldiers aren't the same like Decree Messenger.
Now, would you put Decree Messenger in against Chaos Control? Like, I think this is enough to beat Chaos Warrior for the most part. The the kinetics. Maybe if you wanted like a third kinetic soldier. But what about against Chaos Control? What do you think this deck should be side decking? Is there anything it can do?
Against Chaos Control, it doesn't need much. It has Azura Priest and Kaiku.
Maybe, yeah,
Azure Priest can shut down, like can stop a lot of the Chaos Control momentum.
yeah. It would have two of each once the Kaiku comes in there too. The tribe is, I think, is pretty good against the deck as well. Having an extra card to get Thousand Eyes off the board.
Yeah, like just to go back on last week, something that was brought up that we both missed was Azura Chaos,
Mm-hmm.
and Azura Chaos was brought out to beat the other versions of Chaos Control
The one
on
with
top
the
of Go
the one
on
with the
top of Go Control.
the one with the three sewer priests in it.
Yeah, so unfortunately we missed it, but it was um
It did win
his
an
name is
event, right?
Marcus. Yeah, Marcus Carice. Can't remember what his name is though
No, but
on
that did win. Was it win GFC 8 or not? Not
no,
yet.
an early GFC, like a GFC 5, I think. And like speaking on that is the reason why I think Azure Priest alone and Azure Priest and Tribe give are almost enough just to handle Chaos Control.
Well, I think with a well built side, that this deck still has potential to win the world championship. Um,
For sure, this is one of the decks that you can get blown out really quickly.
yeah, like we said, the opening hands for these decks are super consistent. The side deck can be super well tuned. Um, Probably a combination of Swisky's side deck and Yada Yada's side deck. Maybe you replace the decree stuff and the mystical with the messengers and the messengers and decrees for those cards there, and I think you're pretty solid for handling almost anything.
Yeah, like Mind Control is one of those cards that are just super risky, but super high payoff,
High
right? And
risk,
it's
high
also
reward, yeah.
yeah, it's also like if you look at it, it's an answer for another, like it's one of the cards that answer Sorcerer Book of Moon.
Yeah, that's what kind of makes it a little well, it doesn't really answer Sorcerer Book of Moon though, because if you mind control Sorcerer to banish itself, they can Book of Moon it.
Then you can flip it back up, right?
Yeah, then you can banish it again. You're right. So yeah, that does
Yeah.
answer it. But yeah, mind control on the Sorcerer makes it a little bit less risky of a card because it's you give it a little bit of utility instead of just answering random set cards.
Yeah, and sometimes you're gonna need it to make your play and to pull the Kaiku off the board, right?
Just to pull to your side for a second to summon a
Yeah,
Chaos Sorcerer. Yeah,
just so
that does
just
come
so you
up.
can answer their Chaos Sorcerer.
All right, I don't have too much more to say about this cast deck. Where do you think this deck goes from here? Is there stuff this deck's not? We talked about the possibly cutting the Sinister Sangan part of it, Cyberjar coming in or out. Where do you see this deck? What direction it goes next?
I think it's gonna go a little bit backwards, closer to maybe Carl's deck. Um, Let me look at Carl's one more time. I think the inclusion of the other Kaiku or the Zur Priest is needed in the meta that we're in. One thing that I will say is I still think this deck will take the most spots in top 8 of the GFC, of the World Championship.
Really? See, I'm putting that to Chaos Control myself.
Yeah, one of the two decks, but I just feel like this deck you can just win so easily, and I don't want to say like the decision tree for this deck is less,
Do you
but
think
it
do you
really is.
do you think this deck has the biggest weakness against alternate win decks of every deck? It has the
What are the main what are the main alternate wins? So
Burn and Library FTK. It has the Regeki breaks or the Solemns. We could have one of the two are good answers for Library to have something in your main deck. But pretty much every deck has something at this point for those.
yeah, like
I
the
think
old
it's got
versions with Decree.
the biggest weakness against Burn.
Yeah, because how many let's say all you side are 3 decrees, right? What are your like if you don't get a decree up against an Ojama trio, you're locked out, right?
Pretty much.
Like and if you get the decree after, you can't crack your lock. You can't Regeki break your own stuff
You
to start making plays.
you can Regeki break your own stuff, I believe. Can't you just
Oh,
not
I
wing?
mean
You can't wing blast your own stuff.
I,
Isn't
I'm
it?
no, I mean if you have the decree up, right? Because you're gonna
Oh
need
yeah,
the
yeah, no.
decree up
Oh yeah, if
so
you
you
flip
don't
it over,
die.
yeah, if you flip it over to stop the burn cards, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, I definitely see like that's one of the cards in one of our older videos that we talked about. Not even burned by itself, but Ojama Trio being one of those cards that can just completely throw a wrench in Chaos Turbo's plans.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, we discussed not having the utility of Metamorphosis that Chaos Control has, and I think that could come up with this. Whereas Metamorphosis gives you a few more answers against these alternate win decks that
yeah, yeah.
that this deck does not have.
Like I think we can peg a few people for alternate win deck choices for the World Championship.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably going to see 5 to 10% alternate win decks in Worlds.
Yeah, like who's done well with those variants,
Uh,
right? Like
MMF,
Delinquent with
Delinquent with
Burn.
Delinquent with Burn, MMF with Empty Jar. If Deanna enters with Library FTK,
Yeah.
so the potential is there. It's gonna be hard. I think everyone's gonna try to side deck the most utility side deck stuff they can. It's gonna be hard to side just for those decks when you're not planning on playing them the most.
Yeah, like imagine you don't side you do side for them and don't face them at all, and it could have been the third mind control, it could have been the mind crush, it could have been the kinetic soldier.
The messenger piece.
Yeah. And then the reverse of that is you end up facing them and
You have
eat it really
nothing.
early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just sit there and watch them play their cards.
But yeah, I don't have too much to talk on this. It's hard to see the evolution of the deck. I feel like the evolution is kind of switch into chaos control.
Yeah, that's where I see it too, and I think that's where we could see as this deck has evolved here. Like when we get to this last version here, we're down to two chaos sorcerers,
Yeah,
and
like
we're
this,
cut on the cyber jar. So we'll see for worlds how many people are gonna pilot this deck. I know people have been having a lot of success with it still in ranked play, and in the tournaments overall, people have been doing great with this deck still. So I don't think it's gone yet at all, and I guess we'll see how it does. How many people enter with this compared to Chaos Control, this Chaos Turbo deck.
yeah, like if more people enter with this, it could definitely shift the balance or the favor into this deck over or Chaos Control.
All right, so we're gonna end it there. And we'll see you guys next time. We're gonna do Chaos Warriors and aggro combined.
Yeah.
All right, catch you guys later.
So yeah.